MEC Mayatula Khoza and Comrade Sean Bolton, Mama Asu, and the entire family, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade Jesse Duarte, Isitwala Andwe, Comrade Ahmed Katrada, and the galaxy of our struggle veterans who are here with us today, former ministers, deputy ministers, members of parliament, MECs, councillors, the leadership of our movement in its entirety, comrades and compatriots, fellow mourners. Today we have come together here, gathered at Indonesia, to bid our final and fond farewell to our dear compatriot, Uncle Reggie Vandeyar. We bring our heartfelt condolences to Auntie Asu and the children and the entire family. Quite understandably, we gather here with mixed emotions. There is a deep sense of sadness and collective grief about Uncle Reggie's mortal departure, but this is punctuated by an atmosphere of a deep sense of gratitude and celebration of his exemplary life and inspiring legacy. Yes, as we mourn his passing, we also pay our debt of gratitude to Uncle Reggie and the Vandeyar family for the sacrifices and sterling contributions they have made to the most sacred and most sublime of all causes, the liberation of humankind. With the passing of Uncle Reggie as a humble servant of the people, we feel what Nehru would have felt about Gandhi's passing, and I quote, "The sun that warmed and brightened our lives has set, and we shiver in the cold and in the dark," close quote. Auntie Asu, if we shiver in the cold and in the dark, it is because Uncle Reggie's life is a rich tapestry of the best attributes of that special generation of freedom fighters to which he belonged. And what are those attributes? The total devotion to the struggle for liberation in our country, the unflinching commitment to principle, loyal and selfless service to the cause of the people, humility and simplicity in carrying their work, bravery and discipline, courage and conviction, love and compassion for the people, especially the working class and the poor. Driven by the desire for justice, freedom, and democracy, Uncle Reggie was part of every key development and every key organization of the people of South Africa over a period spanning 3 generations. Starting with the Young Communist League in the 1940s, the Transvaal Indian Congress, and the Communist Party of South Africa, mobilization towards the Congress of the People in the 1950s, the first generation of MK cadres in the early 1960s, to the revival of the Congress movement in the 70s after he was released from prison, to the formation of the United Democratic Front, and the process towards a peaceful and negotiated settlement in the early 1990s. Compatriots and fellow mourners, here lies a man with impeccable integrity and with a measurable sense of justice and equality. A man who sacrificed and consequently suffered in pursuit of the dream of a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. The preamble of the South African Constitution enjoins us to recognize the injustices of the past, to honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, and to respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, because South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. It is against this background that President Jacob Zuma has granted Uncle Reggie Vandeyar a special provincial funeral. We thank our President for considering our request favorably. We know that he would have loved to be here today to pay his own special tribute to Uncle Reggie, with whom he worked for many, many years, particularly on Robben Island. Our President could not be here because of the National Executive Committee of the ANC, which is underway. But President Zuma saw it fit to send the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, Comrade J.C. Duarte, to be here with us and convey personally the President's condolences to the family. A special provincial funeral is reserved for men and women who have made a distinctively remarkable contribution to the well-being of our society in all facets of life. As the Gauteng provincial government, we are working very hard together with our national and local government to preserve and promote an inclusive and balanced narrative about our complex history and heritage. We do not agree with the destruction of the symbols and monuments of apartheid and colonialism. Although these monuments represent the worst part of our history, they are an important part of our collective heritage, and they must be preserved. They must be preserved along the new symbols and monuments that represent our road to freedom and democracy. They must be preserved for future generations to know what it was like to live under apartheid and under colonialism. They must be preserved to ensure that future generations don't make the same mistakes. It is for this reason that this past week we launched the National Heritage Monument in Tshwane. When that National Heritage Monument is complete, it will tell the full story of the many sacrifices made by men and women who ensured that South Africa is a free and democratic country. Uncle Reggie's name belongs to that generation. And the name of Reggie Vandeyar belongs to this galaxy of exceptional men and women who, through their dedication and discipline, rose from humble beginnings to make an indelible mark in our nation's collective consciousness. And they helped to shape our country's democratic destiny. Uncle Reggie is no more, but his fighting spirit will live amongst us forever. The family has lost a loving husband and father, brother and uncle. The nation has lost a leader of great distinction and a patriot par excellence. We who remain behind bear the onerous responsibility to emulate the powerful example that Uncle Reggie Vandeyar's life represents. The best and lasting monument we can ever erect for Reggie Vandeyar is to build a truly non-racial South Africa as envisaged in the Freedom Charter. The best and lasting monument we can ever erect for Uncle Reggie is to also ensure that we banish from our land all the perilous evils such as racism, sexism, inequality, poverty, hunger, greed, and corruption in our land. Let us continue to work for a dream of a truly liberated South Africa in which all shall enjoy a better life. We have the responsibility collectively to fight the persistent development challenges that we face across the length and breadth of our country and our province. Some of those challenges include the resurgence of racism, and incidents of racism are rearing their ugly heads all over our country. We remain a highly unequal society, even if we have made tremendous progress over the past 20 years. Poverty still afflicts many of our people even if we have made huge investments in improving the quality of life. Unemployment remains a huge challenge facing us, and in many communities we have the enemy of drugs that are destroying our children. Let us unite in action to face all these challenges with the courage that Uncle Reggie would have done. As we focus on addressing the development backlogs across our country, and particularly in the most underdeveloped areas, which are African townships and villages, we must also ensure that we do not neglect the poor wherever they are found. And the poor are found also in the Indian and colored communities. We have to correct an impression that has been created that we only care about the poor in African townships. We have to ensure that development takes place everywhere and the beneficiaries of the transformation agenda are across the racial divide. We have to correct this urgently as we build a non-racial South Africa and continue in the non-racial traditions of Uncle Reggie Vandeyar. We have to deal with the perception that there are some amongst our people who were disadvantaged under apartheid that are left out and marginalized. This Uncle Reggie would have wanted us to do so, including having the courage to admit our own mistakes, but to correct them immediately. Let us summon the courage of Uncle Reggie to confront also the evils that afflict some of our system of government. And this includes issues of corruption. This includes also in business and private sector, issues of greed, and in some areas of our own government, incompetence and responding to people's issues without urgency. Many achievements have been recorded over the past 2 decades, but we still have a long way to go. Uncle Reggie would want us to build a competent and clean administration everywhere where the ANC is in charge. Uncle Reggie would want us to promote integrity in public office, integrity also in business practices. Let us work hard to revitalize the infrastructure in our communities and townships that have been neglected in the past. Let us make sure that we build vibrant centers of economic, cultural, and educational activity in our townships, and this includes all the townships. Let us summon the bravery and organizational skills of Uncle Reggie to fight the scourge of crime in our communities. Let us summon his compassion as we transform, modernize, and re-industrialize our economy to build a more inclusive and equitable economic system which will serve the needs of all the people of South Africa. Let us never tire to engage society and mobilize ordinary members of our communities to solve their own problems. We must never be tempted to substitute the people with the state bureaucracy. We must never allow political patronage and factions in our midst to take the place of vibrant grassroots participation and developmental activism. Let us thank Mama Asu, Karuna, and Sishula and the entire family for sharing Uncle Reggie with the movement and the nation. You are one of the families that have earned yourselves a pride of place in that sacred and eternal roll call of those who fought for freedom. We will never forget you. Hamba kahle mkhonto, aluta continua. Thank you very much.